Welcome to Lesson 3.10 of the Grant Architect course, where we explore the hook statement. Throughout this week, we have discussed how to gather and present evidence about problems and needs, national and local data, gap analysis, literature review, community voice, and qualitative validation. Now we turn to how you open your needs statement with a paragraph that captures attention and creates urgency. The hook statement is your opening paragraph, designed to make reviewers sit up and pay attention from the very first sentences. Grant reviewers read dozens or even hundreds of proposals. Many will decide within the first few seconds whether your proposal seems compelling or forgettable. A strong hook captures their attention immediately and creates investment in reading the rest of your narrative. By the end of this lesson, you will understand what makes an effective hook statement and why first impressions matter so much in grant proposals. You will learn multiple approaches to structuring hooks, including statistic-led, story-led, and question-led openings. You will discover how to select your most powerful content for this crucial opening and how to adapt hooks for different types of funders. These skills ensure that the strong evidence you have gathered gets the attention it deserves. Understanding what a hook statement is and why it matters helps you craft more effective openings. By definition, a hook statement is the opening paragraph or opening sentences of your needs statement designed to capture reader attention immediately. Just as a fish hook catches fish, your hook statement catches readers and draws them into your narrative. This first paragraph should be crafted more carefully than any other part of your needs statement. The purpose of a hook is to create urgency and investment in the problem you address. After reading your hook, reviewers should feel that the problem is significant, that it matters to real people, and that something needs to be done. They should want to keep reading to learn more about how you will address this urgent issue. A hook that leaves readers indifferent has failed its fundamental purpose. The function of a hook is to set up the rest of your needs statement. It introduces the central problem and frames how readers will understand everything that follows. An effective hook creates a lens through which readers interpret subsequent evidence and arguments. It establishes the stakes and creates context for the detailed evidence you will present. The impact of your hook extends beyond just the opening paragraph. First impressions shape how reviewers read everything after. A strong opening creates goodwill and positive expectations that color how reviewers interpret the rest of your proposal. A weak or boring opening creates skepticism and disengagement that is difficult to overcome even if subsequent content is strong. Effective hooks typically combine several elements that work together to capture attention and create investment. A striking statistic is a number that demands attention and makes readers pause. This might be a prevalence rate, a comparison, a trend, or an outcome figure that surprises or concerns readers. The statistic should be genuinely significant, not manufactured to seem dramatic. It anchors your hook in quantitative evidence while creating an immediate impression of the problem's scope. Urgency addresses why this matters now rather than later. Problems that have existed for years can still be presented with urgency by showing worsening trends, windows of opportunity, or consequences of continued inaction. Urgency motivates readers to care about addressing the problem immediately rather than treating it as something that can wait. Human impact connects your hook to real people affected by the problem. Even when leading with statistics, effective hooks quickly ground numbers in human terms. This might be a brief reference to what the statistic means for affected individuals or a quick pivot from numbers to human consequences. Human impact creates emotional engagement that pure data cannot achieve. Local relevance connects your hook to your specific community rather than abstract national issues. Reviewers want to fund specific projects in specific places. Showing that the problem exists and matters in your community makes your proposal relevant rather than generic. Local relevance might come through local statistics, named community references, or descriptions specific to your service area. The striking statistic is often the anchor of an effective hook. Choosing and presenting this number well sets up the rest of your needs statement. Selection means choosing your most impactful number from the many statistics you have gathered. Review all your data and ask which number would most surprise or concern readers unfamiliar with your issue. Often, this is not the most technical or comprehensive statistic, but rather one that connects viscerally to human experience. A rate of 1 in 4 may be more impactful than a percentage of 25%, even though they represent the same thing. Framing involves presenting your statistic for maximum rhetorical effect. The same data can be framed multiple ways. Saying that 8,000 children in your county experience homelessness each year creates a different impression than saying 2% of children experience homelessness, though both might be accurate. Consider what framing makes the significance most apparent to readers who may not have context for interpreting raw numbers. Context ensures readers understand what your statistic means. A number without context may not register as significant. Saying that your county has a higher rate than the national average, that the rate has doubled in 5 years, or that the rate is the highest in the region provides comparison points that make significance clear. Do not assume readers will recognize a statistic as alarming without help understanding its meaning. Accuracy is non-negotiable. Never sacrifice accuracy for impact. If you exaggerate, misrepresent, or cherry-pick statistics to seem more dramatic, you risk your credibility if reviewers check your sources. The most effective statistics are genuinely significant, without manipulation. If your real numbers are not striking enough, reconsider whether you are addressing the right problem rather than inflating weak evidence. Creating urgency convinces readers that your proposal demands immediate attention rather than being one more application about ongoing problems. Several strategies establish why this matters now. Worsening trends show that the problem is getting worse over time. If rates have increased, if conditions have deteriorated, or if projections show continued decline, emphasize this trajectory. Language like the rate has doubled since 2015, or the problem has reached crisis levels conveys that this is not a stable situation, but an accelerating challenge requiring urgent response. Window of opportunity presents a unique chance to intervene effectively. This might be a moment when conditions are particularly favorable for success, when resources can be leveraged, or when community readiness has reached a critical point. Windows suggest that acting now will produce better results than waiting, creating urgency around timing rather than just problem severity. Consequences of inaction describe what happens if nothing changes. Paint a picture of the future if the problem continues unaddressed. These consequences should be concrete and concerning. Without intervention, projections suggest the rate will increase by 30% within 5 years creates urgency by showing that inaction has costs. Momentum suggests building on recent progress or attention. If there has been recent investment, awareness, or success in addressing related issues, position your proposal as building on this momentum. The community is now ready for the next phase, or building on the success of our pilot program suggests that now is the right time to expand or deepen efforts. Different hook structures work better for different situations. Choose based on your strongest available content and what will resonate with your audience. Statistic-led hooks open with a striking number that immediately establishes the scope or severity of the problem. This approach works well when you have a genuinely compelling statistic that will surprise or concern readers. It signals a data-driven approach and establishes credibility from the opening line. Story-led hooks open with a brief, compelling narrative that puts a human face on the problem immediately. This approach creates emotional engagement from the start and works particularly well when your strongest evidence is qualitative. Keep the story brief, typically 2 to 4 sentences that illustrate rather than fully develop a narrative. Question-led hooks open with a provocative question that engages readers by prompting them to think. This approach works well when the question itself reveals something important about the problem or when you want readers to consider something they might not have thought about. The question should be genuine rather than purely rhetorical. Contrast-led hooks open with a jarring comparison that highlights disparity or contradiction. This might contrast local conditions with national averages, compare outcomes for different groups, or juxtapose what should happen with what actually happens. Contrasts work well when the gap itself is your most compelling evidence of the problem. Choose based on what evidence is strongest. If your most powerful content is a statistic, lead with it. If you have a compelling story, Start there. The goal is to put your best foot forward. Examining examples of effective hooks illustrates how different structures work in practice. A statistic hook like every 40 seconds, someone in America has a stroke, and in our rural county, most of those victims live more than 30 minutes from specialized care, immediately establishes scope and connects to local relevance. The reader grasps both the national significance and the specific challenge your community faces. A story hook like Maria arrived at the emergency room too late, suffering a stroke while driving 25 miles to the nearest hospital with neurological services, draws readers into an individual experience that illustrates a systemic problem. The brief narrative creates emotional engagement while suggesting a broader pattern. A question hook, like what happens when a child goes hungry every night, knowing school breakfast is the only reliable meal they will receive, prompts readers to imagine the human experience you address. The question creates cognitive engagement as readers consider the answer before you provide it. A contrast hook, like while national unemployment fell to 4% last year, our community's rate remained at 11%, with manufacturing job losses continuing to devastate working families, highlights a disparity that demands attention. The contrast between national progress and local struggle creates urgency for targeted intervention. Note how each example is brief while accomplishing multiple goals. They capture attention, establish relevance, create emotional engagement, and set up the detailed evidence that follows. Study effective hooks in successful proposals to develop your instincts for this critical paragraph. Your hook must connect seamlessly to the rest of your narrative rather than standing as an isolated attention getter. Several elements ensure this connection. Setup means your hook introduces the core problem that the rest of your needs statement will document. The hook should name or clearly imply the issue you address. If your hook is about food insecurity, the needs statement should be about food insecurity. This seems obvious, but some proposals have hooks that drift away from their main focus. Transition involves moving smoothly from your attention-getting hook to the detailed evidence that follows. After the hook, you typically need one or two sentences that signal you are now going to provide the fuller picture. This transition might be phrased as "This challenge affects thousands of families in our community," or "Behind this statistic are real people facing impossible choices every day." The transition maintains momentum while shifting to documentation mode. Consistency requires that the detailed evidence in your needs statement supports the claims and framing of your hook. If your hook promises a crisis, your evidence should demonstrate crisis-level conditions. If your hook mentions a specific population, your evidence should focus on that population. Reviewers notice when the body of a needs statement does not deliver on the promise of the opening. Payoff means your solution section addresses the problem introduced in the hook. The entire proposal should feel unified, with your hook establishing stakes that your proposed solution addresses. If the hook describes children going hungry, your program should feed children. This circular structure, where the solution addresses the problem introduced at the start, creates narrative coherence throughout your proposal. Several common mistakes undermine hook effectiveness. Avoiding these pitfalls helps ensure your opening serves its purpose. Overstatement includes claims that cannot be supported by your evidence. Calling something the worst crisis in history or an unprecedented emergency sets expectations your evidence may not meet. If reviewers suspect exaggeration in your hook, they will read the rest of your proposal with skepticism. Use strong language only when your evidence genuinely supports it. Clichés are tired phrases that do not engage readers because they have heard them countless times. Now more than ever in these challenging times, or making a difference fail to capture attention because they are generic and overused. Fresh, specific language engages readers far more effectively than well-worn phrases that signal you are working from a template rather than thinking carefully about your unique situation. Excessive length undermines hook effectiveness. A hook should be a paragraph, not a page. If your hook runs longer than 4 or 5 sentences, it loses the punchy impact that captures attention. The detailed evidence comes later. The hook creates interest that motivates readers to engage with that detailed evidence. Do not front-load everything into the opening. Disconnection occurs when hooks are unrelated to the rest of the proposal. Some grant writers craft compelling hooks that drift away from their actual program focus, hoping the strong opening will carry the proposal. Instead, this creates confusion when the needs statement does not follow through on the hook's promises. Every element of your hook should connect directly to the problem you document and the solution you propose. Different funders respond to different hook approaches, and tailoring your opening to funder preferences increases effectiveness. Federal funders typically review through academic or professional panels that appreciate data-driven openings, demonstrating scholarly rigor. A striking statistic from peer-reviewed research or government data may work better than a narrative opening. Federal reviewers often expect density of evidence from the first paragraph. Private foundations vary more in their preferences, but many respond well to narrative openings that create emotional engagement. Foundation program officers often prioritize readability and human connection. A brief story or compelling quote might capture attention more effectively than statistics alone. Research specific foundations to understand their voice and values. Corporate funders often respond to problems framed in business terms. Language about return on investment, workforce development, economic impact, and community sustainability resonates with corporate audiences. Frame problems in terms of their effects on business outcomes, employee well-being, or community economic health. Corporate funders want to see how their investment will produce measurable results. Local funders, including community foundations and local government, particularly value local relevance strongly emphasized from the opening. They want to know that you understand their specific community and that the problem you describe exists in the place they care about. Name local landmarks, reference local data, and demonstrate that this is not a generic national problem but a challenge facing their neighbors. Before finalizing your hook, test it using several methods to ensure it achieves its purpose. Reading aloud helps you hear whether your hook captures attention when spoken. Words that look good on paper sometimes sound awkward or fail to create impact when voiced. If your hook does not feel compelling when you speak it, revise until it does. The rhythm, cadence, and punch of your opening should be audible. Colleague review means asking others for honest reactions to your hook. Ask colleagues unfamiliar with your project to read your hook and describe their reaction. Did it capture their attention? Did they want to keep reading? Did they understand what problem you address? Their fresh perspective reveals whether your hook works for readers who do not already know your organization and its work. The So What test asks whether your hook answers why this matters. After reading your hook, a reader should feel that the problem is significant and worth addressing. If a skeptical reader could shrug and ask so what, your hook needs strengthening. The stakes should be clear. Readers should understand why they should care about this problem. Accuracy check ensures every claim can be documented. Before your hook goes out, verify that every statistic, assertion, and claim can be supported with sources. If your hook says 1 in 4, make sure you can cite where that number comes from. Reviewers may check, and inaccurate claims in your opening undermine everything that follows. Hook techniques apply beyond the needs statement to multiple proposal sections, though each context requires adaptation. The needs statement hook opens your problem documentation with attention-capturing content about the problem you address. This is the primary hook we have discussed throughout this lesson, focusing on problem significance, urgency, and human impact. The needs statement hook sets up the detailed evidence that follows. Project description sections can open with a compelling vision of success or transformation. Rather than problem-focused, this hook describes what will be different if your project succeeds, what will the community look like, what will participants achieve. A vision-oriented hook creates forward momentum and optimism. Executive summaries often start with an abbreviated hook that captures the essence of your needs statement in condensed form. Since executive summaries must be brief, the hook may be only 1 or 2 sentences that establish the problem's significance before summarizing your solution. The abbreviated hook retains impact while respecting length constraints. Cover letters may include a hook to draw busy readers into your proposal. A foundation program officer or agency reviewer may read the cover letter first, so a strong opening creates positive impressions before they reach your full proposal. Cover letter hooks should be brief and connected to why your proposal fits this specific funder. Revision transforms good hooks into excellent ones. Apply these strategies to strengthen your opening. Draft multiple versions by trying different approaches before settling on your final hook. Write a statistic-led version, a story-led version, and a question-led version. Experiment with different framing of the same data. This exercise often reveals possibilities you would not have considered with a single draft. The best hooks often emerge from the third or fourth attempt rather than the first. Cut ruthlessly by removing any unnecessary words. Every word in your hook should earn its place. Cut adjectives that do not add meaning. Remove hedging language like somewhat or rather. Eliminate redundancy. A hook that says the same thing in 10 words instead of 15 will be more powerful. Brevity creates impact. Strengthen verbs by using active, powerful language rather than passive constructions. Devastating is stronger than being affected by. Children go hungry is more direct than children are experiencing hunger. Strong verbs create movement and energy that weak verbs lack. Review every verb in your hook and ask whether a more powerful alternative exists. Check flow by ensuring smooth transition to the next paragraph. Your hook should lead naturally into the detailed evidence that follows. Read the hook and first sentence of your needs statement together. Is the transition smooth? Does the reader feel momentum carrying them forward? Revise transitions that feel abrupt or disconnected. This practical application walks you through creating an effective hook for your own proposal. Step 1. Identify the most striking statistic about your problem. Review all the data you have gathered and select the number that would most surprise or concern someone unfamiliar with your issue. Consider how to frame it for maximum impact while maintaining accuracy. Step 2. Draft 3 different hook approaches using that statistic. Write one version that leads with the statistic directly. Write another that opens with a brief story and incorporates the statistic. Write a third that uses contrast or comparison. Having multiple versions helps you see which approach feels strongest. Step 3. Test each with a colleague for reaction. Ask colleagues unfamiliar with your project to read all 3 versions and tell you which captured their attention most effectively. Ask them to describe their emotional and intellectual response to each. Note which version generated the strongest desire to keep reading. Step 4. Refine the strongest hook and connect it to your narrative. Take the version that tested best and polish it further. Apply the revision strategies from this lesson, then ensure smooth transition to your needs statement's detailed evidence. Read the hook and following paragraph together to confirm narrative flow. This process takes time but produces hooks that dramatically strengthen your proposals. Let us summarize the essential lessons from our exploration of the hook statement. The purpose of a hook is to capture attention and create urgency from the very first sentences of your needs statement. Grant reviewers read many proposals, and your opening paragraph determines whether they engage deeply or skim through the rest. A powerful hook creates investment in your problem before reviewers encounter your detailed evidence. It sets the tone for everything that follows and shapes how reviewers interpret subsequent content. The key elements of effective hooks work together to create impact. A striking statistic anchors your opening in quantitative evidence that demands attention. Urgency addresses why this matters now rather than later, creating motivation for immediate action. Human impact connects numbers to real people, transforming abstract data into visceral understanding. Local relevance grounds your hook in your specific community, showing this is not a generic national problem, but a challenge facing the people you serve. The strongest hooks combine multiple elements, weaving together data, urgency, human dimension, and local specificity. Connection between your hook and your full narrative ensures coherence throughout your proposal. Your hook introduces the problem that the rest of your needs statement documents in detail. Evidence in the body should support claims made in the opening. Your solution should address the stakes established by your hook. This circular structure creates unity and demonstrates that every element of your proposal connects intentionally. In our next lesson, we will explore how to use artificial intelligence tools for data synthesis and literature review. Building on the evidence gathering skills from this week, you will learn how AI can help you efficiently search literature, synthesize data from multiple sources, and identify patterns in evidence. This AI Spotlight lesson connects technology tools to the grant writing skills you have developed throughout week 3.